Connecting with us now on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, Chad Brown. He is a 15-year NFL veteran, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, a college football national champion, and much, much more. But if we listed the full resume, we'd just be listing the resume the entire interview. Chad, thank you very much for taking the time. I'm interested to hear your takes on the Super Bowl because as an analyst for 9 News in Denver, focusing on the Broncos, you know the Chiefs very well and in the division. So we'll start right there. Is there a key that stands out to you as a former defensive guy that has to break down the Chiefs' offense that the Niners might focus in on to stop Mahomes and that Chiefs' offense?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that they're going to try to do. Whether they can execute them, we'll see. The Niners' defense, while spending most of the season one of the best defenses in the league, really has been underperforming late in the regular season and particularly here in the playoffs. Teams have been running the ball on them. Their secondary got exposed a little bit. So for the 49ers and Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator out there, to try to slow down Travis Kelce would probably be job number one. But Andy Reid has slowly been chipping away at that wide receiver room, and that room cost them a couple of games during the regular season. But here in the playoffs, they're actually playing at a pretty high level, and then they've added the physicality of Isaiah Pacheco to the run game. So their ability to just kind of impose their will on you is something that we haven't seen from the Chiefs over the last couple of years. And I think Andy Reid is recognizing, I've got a really good defense, so I don't need to go out and score 45 points. We're fine to win 17-14, something like that. We'll lean on that great defense. And our quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, while he's the best player, at least the best quarterback in the NFL, he also plays with not very much ego. So he's fine just to walk away with the W. We don't need to go out there and put up superstar or Star Wars kind of numbers to win a ball game.
It's interesting you bring up kind of how the Niners defense specifically has looked different in the postseason. As you know, you hear players say, you hear coaches say it probably too often, right? How everything's different in the playoffs. It's all ratcheted up. The intensity is different. You can't simulate it in practice. When you're getting ready for a team, if they did, almost what do you think is real? Are you looking at the Niners and saying, all right, what they did in the regular season is what we have to prepare for, this good defense? Or are you looking at those two playoff games and saying we can take advantage of some things? Like how do you weigh what team you're getting ready for?
I think if you're a coach in the Super Bowl, I think you've got to try to avoid the paralysis by analysis and diving too deep. Now, are there certain things that you may take a clue from? If you watch every regular season game, I'm sure Andy Reid has watched every game for the 49ers this year.
Yep.
But I think the playoff games where they are playing good teams and good coaches and good quarterbacks on the other side, as the Chiefs have all those things, that's probably the games where I would be able to get the most information from, and that's where my game plan would be built upon. So for Andy Reid and all those guys in Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo, I think you look at the 49ers based on their 2 playoff games and draw maybe 75-80% of your game plan based on what you've seen these last couple of weeks.
Chad Brown, 15-year NFL veteran, joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Chad, as a defensive guy, how do you not get paralysis by analysis looking at the Niners offense? Because I look at it and I think Christian McCaffrey, he's in the backfield. We know him very well from his time in Carolina, but he can also essentially be a wide receiver. Deebo Samuel can do a little bit of everything. Kittle can block and run, can block and catch. Ayuk and I mean, they have so many different players that are so versatile. How do you not get caught up with they could do this, they could do that, they could do this other thing? We have to be prepared for it all and kind of allow yourself to play football.
Well, once you start spending time looking at the 49ers offense, certain themes start to repeat themselves. They lead the league in the close formation. What I mean by that is we always talk about the NFL and it's a spread league. College football is a spread league. Receivers are outside the numbers. The 49ers lead the league in their tight formations. They want to do that because they recognize Kyle Shanahan's a Kobe Smart coach, that the poorest tacklers on any defense are going to be the 2 as to tackle in space. That gives us a chance to break tackles. It gives us a chance to get yards after catch if we're running a crossing route, all of those kind of things. So if you're Steve Spagnuolo, I am spending a lot of time with my cornerbacks, working on tackling, working on knowing where their help is and what situation do I need to push this guy to the sideline to use the greatest tackler in the history of football, the sideline? And what situation do I need to force him back into all my help inside so we can avoid those big gash plays? Because even the Niners' run game is not, consistent from a 5 yard, 6 yard, 7 yards perspective. It's 2, 3 yards, 0 yards. Then McCaffrey breaks a 40-yarder because they're able to get a one-on-one situation with McCaffrey and a cornerback. Again, those guys are the worst tackle on the football team. So that would be number one. And number two is 49ers lead the league in window dressing. The plays are all very similar once you diagnose it, but they're just different guys and different motions and different formations to run the exact same play. So, don't overwhelm yourself with trying to understand every single look they do. Understand they're going to run the same play out of 10 different looks.
What about Purdy, right? We've made it this far in the conversation. We haven't mentioned one of the quarterbacks, which may have broken a record for getting ready for the Super Bowl. It seems like everybody thinks he's either unbelievable or he's a complete system guy that's being carried by his teammates. Are you convinced that Purdy can handle everything, or would you be tempted to, maybe try to bait him into a mistake or blitz the heck out of the young guy in the Super Bowl?
I think he's still learning his way through this, and obviously he's a young guy with not that much experience. I called him on the games at Iowa State, so I thought he was a guy who had a great processing ability. He was a guy who could make all the prerequisite throws, but he wasn't going to, wow you with his arm strength and those kind of things. So he got himself into the perfect situation where Kyle Shanahan understands his limitations. At the same time, he's got tremendous playmakers around him, and we've talked about some of those guys, George Kittle, McCaffrey, and Ayuk, and Samuels, and those guys, where he just needs to get the ball to those guys, particularly as they're running, so they can make those yards after catch. So there's not asking too much of him. He's not asked to go out and throw the ball 45 times a game and light it up. And even when he doesn't play great, which he didn't play great in the first two playoff games, they've got enough talent around him where they can still find ways to win. So I'm kind of in the middle of the Brock Purdy conversation. I don't have a hot take on either side. I don't think he's just a game manager, nor do I think he's a future great quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a guy who's in a perfect situation and has a great skill set to move that 49ers offense forward.
Chad Brown, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, connecting with us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Chad, having played in the big game yourself, talk about the distractions. How difficult is it to block out the distractions of Super Bowl week, but also would it have been harder to block out those distractions if it were in Vegas when you were participating?
I think Vegas is obviously the wild card here. I mean, if you're going to get into any kind of shenanigans or trouble, Vegas is certainly the place that would be seem like the most likely destination. But I think both these teams have some experience there from an organizational standpoint. Obviously, more Chiefs players than 49ers players. So I think there's enough guys to be able to give the tales of caution and, hey, we got to approach this thing like anything else, and we can come back to Vegas later and have a great time after we win this, Lombardi trophy. So this is not the week to party. It's going to be next week where we can stay here and have all the fun we want after we win this thing. So keep your eyes on the prize. And as far as the in-game experience, I thought when I was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Bill Cowher's advice was tremendous. He said, I know you guys, most of you guys are the last bus guys. There's a couple of buses that leave the hotel going to the stadium. I would advise you to get on, maybe not the earliest bus, but that middle bus. So you can get here a half hour, 45 minutes earlier, and you can go on the field, and you can see some of the stars in the stands. And you can get yourself over, the magnitude of the moment. So for my Super Bowl to be out there and see Vanessa Williams warming up for the national anthem, okay, I've seen her before. So you kind of start checking those things off the list, and after the first couple of plays, you are able to shift your focus to football and not just be wowed by the hugeness of this moment.
You bring up you can go back to Vegas. There are some rumors out there, I don't know how true they are, that Mahomes has put out the word like, hey, if we win, I'll bring everybody back, right? There's the motivation. You don't have to do it now. I'll bring you back because he's got, more money than anybody. Was it all Cowher giving it, or was there, again, you were the young guy kind of on that Steelers defense. Were any of the veterans giving you any awesome pieces of advice for the Super Bowl?
We didn't have anybody who was a significant starter on that defense who had played in a Super Bowl. So yeah, it was all brand new for myself and for Rod Woodson and for Kevin Green and for Greg Lloyd. So that moment was pretty big, and I think the nerves were a factor in that Cowboys' first drive or two where they had some success, but after that we played a much better brand of football.
Chad, we appreciate you for taking the time, and as always, we appreciate your insight.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Have a good one.